So I have the pleasure of introducing you, Michelle. We caught up at the AFA conference earlier this year, and in our conversation, just talking about the current landscape we're all sort of plodding through in this financial planning world, and
Crazy.
taxing it's been on people emotionally and mentally. The conversation went through to something that you went through personally some years ago, and you shared some
hmm
insight on that, which led you to come up with this workshop, and then you
Yeah.
offered to share that. And that sort of, I got so excited about that concept of creating the future self, your future self,
Yeah.
and you actually put that into practice. And
Yeah.
you're a leader, as you'd have mentioned before. When we were chatting before, you're now quite an influencer in our industry, not just here, but across the nations over in the UK. And you've been doing a lot of work with us at the AFA through Paraplanning.
Have.
I know you've also done a lot of work with MDRT. So it's
Yeah.
fantastic that we can have this opportunity to have your time to share this journey and how we can put some of this stuff in practice and become better, better versions of ourselves.
Yeah. 100%.
You first of all, and I'm very excited to hear what this is all about. So I'm going to give this, take this away. But before I do, I just remembered we are also taking a Q&A at the end. So if you do have any questions, whatever, just pop them down, and Jenny's going to keep note of that. And anything that sort of stands out, we're going to be throwing at Michelle towards the end. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. What I would say is that I know obviously we are talking about a sector which is just slightly crazy at the moment, both in the UK, Australia, all over the world. Financial services is just on speed. The challenges that are facing financial planners. And obviously I'm not a planner. I've never been a planner, but for 22 years I've coached planners. And the changes I've seen in that landscape have been incredible over that 22 years. And to be fair, I'm surprised we've still got so many standing and so many still in the sector. So I was very happy to share this with you. And there's a bit of a personal story in there. And what I thought I would do is I do have a whole slide deck prepared, which I can share my screen at appropriate points. But what I thought I'd do is, I thought I would not do that and actually I've got the slides running in the back, so as my kind of prompts, and then dip in and out as and when, because I want this to be a personal conversation as much as anything else, rather than me just kind of go, no, here's my presentation, because it's not about that at all. So if you're happy, I'm very excited to dive in. This presentation is called The Future You, Your Life by Design. And it is a personal story. So I'll dive straight in and I'll share that story with you. So I set up a coaching business when I was 20 years old. It seems like an absolute lifetime ago. And, all of my clients are financial advisors. And over that time, they were coming to me with their challenges and their issues and what was working and what was not working, and how difficult life was. And one of the things that I recognized very early on was that when financial planners who are running businesses are happy and have a well life and are, surrounded by great people, they have a great business. It's quite simple. It's not any more complicated than that. And that's because they effectively are no good at helping anybody else unless they've focused on helping themselves first. And I was coming across so many very sad, very unhappy financial planners, financial advisors, and probably because they'd spent so much time and so much of their energy, oozing energy for their clients and giving so much to everybody else, that actually they'd forgotten to take care of probably the most important person in the world, and that's themselves. Quite simply, they give so much, and that's one of the biggest challenges of being a planner and an advisor in today's world. And that's because, most consumers, most clients' lives have remained, their needs have remained unchanged over the years, but actually, the everyday person's life is becoming much more complicated. Blended families, there's illnesses, there's just the challenges of life, and I'll dive into a few stories as we go through. So I think this concept came about, and it came about in 2013, The Future You as an actual concept. And I was at an MDRT meeting. And I'd just come off stage, and I had been on stage talking about how to have a wow business and a wow life, and, you know, how to have amazingness in every aspect of it. And as I was walking down the steps from the stage, there was a tiny little bit of me that thought, but Michelle, you don't have a wow life. Like, you're not happy. And I literally, as one foot went on one step as I walked off stage, I just felt like such a hypocrite. And I thought, and it's quite simply, you know, I'd got a 3-year-old daughter. I'd been in a 14-year relationship. I had a house, a business. Life was crazy. You know, I was packing it all in. I was cramming everything into my life that I could. And I just realized that, you know, I had totally lost myself in that whole journey. Like, there was nothing in my life that was about me, not one thing. I wasn't going to the gym. I wasn't eating well. I was traveling. You know, I had Ruby at home. I had a non-existent relationship with Martin, who was Ruby's dad. You know, it was a flipping car crash, literally. And that was kind of fine. And I just kind of put it to the back of my mind and thought, well, I'll tackle that bridge, you know, when I come to it. And then that evening, I was in the bar, and there was a group of financial advisors. And the thing with MDRT, if any of you have had the wonderful experience of it, is it's like a big, massive family. And, you know, it's a very open, everyone's very chatty. And I sat in the bar, and this guy just randomly we got chatting, and he said to me, are you happy? And I was like, that, wow, blooming wowzers. And I was like, yeah. I just literally couldn't get my words out, because he'd almost spotted something in me that he was like, I'm going to bust her. Like, she's mine. Like, there's no way she's getting away from me. And he literally said to me straight out, you don't look very happy. Now there's me, I'm in a foreign country, I'm all excited, you know, I'm in my posh dress, and he's asking me if I'm happy. And so I literally for a split second, I was like, shit. I'm gonna have to answer this question honestly, because he'd cornered me. And I said to him, you know what? No, I'm not. And I swear to you, for the next probably, oh my God, what seemed like a lifetime, but it's probably only about 4 hours, I literally poured my whole heart out to him. You know, why I wasn't happy in my life, my relationships, my work. And, you know, it's amazing what you tell a complete stranger. But that conversation was probably one of the turning points in my life as a mother, as a girlfriend, as a female, as a businesswoman, because I was cornered, and I had to be honest. So naturally, the conversation wasn't the most joyous. There was lots of tears, you know, and he asked me why I was in a relationship that I was unhappy in, blah, blah, blah. And I was just flipping devastated by this whole conversation. We are still friends, and we still keep in touch very much, because he obviously is very keen on how my life progressed. But what I did do is I literally went, as soon as I got into my hotel room, I got the little tiny bit of the little bit of paper that sits by the phone and the pen. And I wrote down 10 headers. And these were the 10 areas of my life that I knew I needed to sort out in equal measure. I didn't want to or need to spend, you know, all of my efforts on fixing my relationship, or spending more time on my health, or my, you know, my fitness. It was the whole thing. I was totally 100% out of balance. And I'm going to take you all through this exercise, and I hope you find it as liberating as I am, regardless of where you are in your journey, in your professional life, in your personal life, your relationships, because we all need a little bit of a sort of a stick of dynamite occasionally to just make us reset what we're doing. And what came of that exercise was the Future You, a concept, a workbook, and I make sure that I go through it with every client. And I would advise as professional planners and advisors, there's absolutely no reason why you can't take that workbook, and I'm very happy to share it in an editable format, and you make it part of your fact-finding process with clients, you know, to really engage at a much deeper level. So I've got advisors all over the UK using this as a tool, you know, when having conversations with their clients, because sometimes we just need someone to just broaden us out and just ask us questions that just go way deeper you know, than the money, because it's not about the money. You know, when I had that conversation with myself, it wasn't about money. Money was an enabler, but I was more distraught the fact that I had a wobbly bum, and, you know, I was at problems for me that I didn't feel and look as amazing as I knew that I should. So, and we're all probably guilty of that at times. So I will share that exercise with you, and I want you to dive in. But one of the, so two things. One of the things that's the most important, and I will share this slide. I'm just going to pop up on the Zoom here. I'm going to share this slide with you, because this is probably one of the most important slides that hit me on that day. And this quote I picked up on my Facebook timeline some years ago, but it's always resonated with me. And it's down to this thing about having passion for what you do. Now, we are told in financial services that we have to have passion for the job and, you know, energy, and, you know, we have to love what we do. And most financial planners, without question, love what they do, because it's not the most easiest profession to be in the world. And I think what's really important is that they don't just have passion for their job or for their professional life. They have passion for their personal being, their whole person. And this quote popped up on my timeline, and I just love it. So it's, why be ordinary when with passion and belief you can stand out from the rest and be extraordinary? Now, I think it's safe to say that I am yet to meet anybody, personally or professionally, that wants to be ordinary, that just wants to kind of, you know, tootle through life. You know, everybody wants to make an impact, everyone wants to make a dent, everybody wants to, you know, particularly the people I meet anyway, you know, want to just make their mark. And what I will say is that if you want to be fueled by a huge amount of passion, if you want to have, you know, so much energy, you know, that you feel like you've been shot out of a rocket rather than shot by a rocket, you have to have this, you know, this innate drive in you, where you know 100% without question that you have put yourself at the center of your universe. And, you know, when I came to the AFA conference in August, you know, I had very little sort of time to myself, but two things that I took away from that conference was, I went to the Inspire Wellbeing workshop that was run by two lovely ladies who, for the life of me right this second, I can't remember their names. And then I attended Chelsea Pottinger's you know, keynote session. And what I realized was that when I got back to the UK, there was so much at conferences and at workshops that I was attending throughout sort of, you know, September and October, that there's this whole drive for financial planners, you know, to give more to their clients, understand their clients more, you know, focus on their clients' well-being. And I sat there at several conferences after seeing all of you, thinking, well, who the hell takes care of the planners and the advisors if all they're doing is giving everything they've got, more and more and more, to their clients? There's absolutely nothing left. So there is this drive and this you know, bandwagon, as I call it, of well-being and financial well-being, and that's great. But there is the most important human in all of this conversation is the planner. It is the advisor. It's the person that, you know, is still a man, a woman, a husband, a wife, brother, sister. We're all still just humans. And I think in a profession that literally can drain you dry, we have to remember that. We have to remember to put our own oxygen masks on before helping anybody else. You know, it's an absolute must. So I think there's a drive for well-being. It's very much on the agenda. But so what I did, just flicking back to me quickly, is, you know, I got my little bit of paper and I wrote down them 10 areas. And what I did was I chose an age in my future where I wanted to be happy. Now that's the only definition I gave. I just wanted to be happy. I wanted it all to be sorted. I wanted every aspect of my life to be wow in equal measure. I didn't want to be ordinary. I wanted an extraordinary life. I wanted to be passionate. I wanted to be, you know, fueled with, you know, emotional energy. And the only way I knew I could do that was by, you know, going through that exercise, which I will take you through. But I want to ask you a question before I do that. And I'm not going to obviously ask you to, put your hands up or, or to put a comment in. But what I do want to know, and I want you to be honest with yourselves. I want you to be focused solely on you, not your children, not your partners, not your family, not your clients, nobody. I just want you to focus on you. And I want to ask you a question. And the question is, are you happy? Like really happy? Like 100%, there's every aspect of your life that you wouldn't change. Now, when I ask that question, are you happy? I need you to be honest with yourselves, because the same moment that I had, in that hotel on that evening, an MDRT meeting, and the guy said to me, "Are you happy?" I had two choices. I could have lied through my teeth and I could have told him that how wonderful my life was. Or actually, I could have a little bit of self-awareness and a bit of honesty, which I don't think we all have all the time. And I just said, no, I wasn't. And that created a sequence of events in my life which have been amazing. Actually, there's been some tears and there's been some, upheaval, but that was a game-changing moment for me. And I'm going to ask you the same question, are you happy? And if the answer is no, that's absolutely fine. And it's the first step in trying to make some changes. And it might not be in all areas of your life, but I would suspect that there are some things that you need to spend some time focusing on. And this is what we're doing. We're talking about creating the future version of you, your future life, the future self. And we're doing that. And for once, we don't care about your clients. We're just not interested. All I care about is you, as humans and as people in your own life. So I'll just, we're going to put you at the center of it. Now, I'm not going to go through this slide too much because I want to dive into the session, but all these slides are going to be available to you. But what this is basically saying is, the bit here where I've talked about relaunch, I want you to imagine that if you're not happy with any aspect of your life, the date that you pick in the future has got to be a date that means a huge amount to you. Right, so it's a date that, it might be when your children are offhand, you've reached a certain birthday, it might be a milestone it might even be a milestone in your professional journey, that's fine too. But a date that means a great deal to you, because that's the day we're going to relaunch the future version of you. And, and I had a little get together with my girlfriends, and, mine was the eve of my 40th birthday. So bearing in mind at the time I was 33 years old, I was 35 years old. Ruby was just about to turn 3, and my future version date was my eve of my 40th birthday. And that's when I wanted my life to just be on the money. So I just want you to sort of think about that. So let's dive in. So if you've got the worksheets, please grab them. But don't worry if you don't, because I'm going to talk you through. So grab a piece of paper or an iPad or whatever you write on, or whatever you type on. And what I want you to do is I want you to, for a second, I just want you to clear your mind. You've had busy days, it's the nearly the close of the day for you. Just sort of try and block out the day a little bit and just take a moment to focus on what we're doing. Be a bit present, be here. We've got 30 odd people on the line. Just for a second, I want you to focus on yourself. I want you to forget there's anybody else in your life. It's just you. And what we're going for is we're going to create together the future version of each of you. So what I want you to do is I want you to grab a piece of paper, and I want you to decide or choose an age or a date in your future where you feel you might be, sitting, lying, flying, sailing, relaxing. I want you to visualize that moment where you can honestly sit back and say, I've done it. My life is fab. I look amazing. I feel amazing. A date that resonates with you in your future. Now, mine was my 40th birthday, and I've sadly passed the 40th mark, but mine was the eve of my 40th birthday. So I want you to write down that date. You can, don't worry about the day, but I want the date. I want the date written down so that you can connect with that date in the future, in your future self. Okay, I'll give you a moment to do that. Have a think. I'll think about it. If there's people in your office, you can share that age or that date in the future with that person. Jenny, have you got one? Sarah, have you got one? Fab. All right, Amy, you got one? Awesome. Okay. So the 10 areas, I'm going to talk you through them. So as I'm talking you through them, what I want you to do is I want you to write down how you are on the eve of that date. So the first one, we'll do the first one together. So the first one is physically. So I want you to write down on the eve of that, be as descriptive as you can with your words. The more those words mean something to you, the more you'll attach yourself to them. You know, think about your fitness. Think about your wobbly bits. Think about, you know, how toned you are, what waist size you might be. You know, just think about your skin, your hair, you know, your health, the physical fitness, look, feel of you, your body, you know, just how you feel in yourself. When I did the exercise, I just decided I didn't want a wobbly bottom. That was it, to be fair. A wobbly bottom and long legs. Now, there's not a lot I could do with the longer legs because I'm about 5 foot nothing. But you know, the big thing was I wanted great skin. I wanted sparkly eyes. I didn't quite bank on the skinhead, but that came as part of a midlife crisis, which I'll tell you about later. But you know, I just wanted to be toned. That was my thing. So write down however physically you want to look and feel on the eve of that day. You can even, you know, put in there about how you want to dress, you know, what your style wants to be. Do you want to be sassy? Do you want to be traditional? Do you want to be conservative? Do you want to be a bit spunky? You know, how do you want your look and feel of your whole person to be on the eve of that date? And I think the important point is, with all of these sections I'll run you through, you know, if you want any of this, we've got to design it today. We've got to start today by designing the future version of you, because you don't want to get, you know, 2 months in, you know, to the anniversary of that date and think, well, I've got loads to do, because it'd be too late. So I started the second I left that hotel room. So physically is the first one. Then we've got emotionally and mentally. So how do you want to feel emotionally and mentally? You know, maybe you want to be calmer, you want to be more present, you want to be just generally happier with your own company, maybe. Life is insane. I mean, you know, in the last, oh gosh, I mean, you know, as a mother alone, I get to 9 o'clock and take Ruby to school and think, right, phase 1 complete, because it's just nuts. Like the stuff that you put off in the morning is incredible. So we're all tackling life and social media and demands from just coming from all over. So how do you want to emotionally, mentally feel on the eve of that date? Maybe you want to be, you know, less snappy, a little bit more patient, maybe more present. I mean, today is an oddity, but one of the things that I took from the wellbeing workshop that I did for Inspire when I attended at the AFA conference was, you know, I introduced a 7 till 7 rule. So from 7 p.m. at night until 7 a.m. in the morning, there's no mobile phones in my lounge. It's just not happening. Phones are on silent, they're off, they're in the kitchen. Because one of the things I recognised was that maybe I wasn't as present as I should be when Ruby wants to play with her Lego, or, you know, so it's done, and they're off until 7 a.m. in the morning. And I can honestly tell you, I feel that life has slowed down, you know, mentally, emotionally. I'm much clearer, more present, happier. So it's amazing, these little changes that you can make. So mentally, emotionally, you know, how do you want to feel on the eve of that date? So write it down, write every word down that pops into your head. Okay. Now we've got professionally. Now it's important that professionally, the professional piece is segmented but a bit from anything else. And that's because, you know, when I ask, you know, any financial planners, and I'll say to them, you know, so tell me what your biggest professional achievement is. You know, they'll tell me about their exams they've sat, or the client that they closed, or, you know, and one of the things is that we get very, very obsessed with, particularly in the UK, with academic qualifications, that we actually forget about the other achievements. So on the eve of that date, you know, what do you want to have professionally achieved on the eve of that date, your date? It might be, you know, a designation. It might be recognized as an industry leader. It might have been to speak on stage. You know, what's your professional achievements on the eve of that date? What I would also say is I want you to also think about what you want to be known as professionally. You know, how do you want your reputation to sit reputationally, you know, with other people? What do you want them saying about you when you're not there? You know, what do you want to be known for, trusted for, recognized as? Because any of those things that you want, particularly in the professional space, you've got to start working on them now. They're not just gonna, you know, not just gonna happen by accident. It needs to be designed. So yeah, so think about your professional achievements. And one of the things I would say is, given a sector that's so demanding, you know, your professional achievements don't define who you are. You know, you are more than a planner. You're more than your job. You're more than, you know, the relationship you have with clients. You know, you as a planner does not define who you are. And I think we probably in the sector should remember that a little bit more, because we just get so sucked in by our clients. And we are not defined by our clients. So professionally, so it's a big one. And again, remember, we're talking about the eve of this date. Just design it, describe it, write it down, and be honest. And I would also say, with all of these, just imagine that the world is your oyster. You know, consider that you can achieve anything. You can do anything that you put your mind to, without limitation, without hesitation, with total freedom. So, you know, this is an opportunity to be a little bit wild in your design. You know, think about all the things you can do, you know, the things that, you know, that are possible for you in your life. It's so important. Now, this is always the killer one, right? And it's hard because this involves other people, and this is relationships. So I'm going to take a little bit longer on this. For some reason, and I think it's just life produces way too many people in our journey and on our journey. We trawl through life, we pick people up like we're a steam train, and we just like drag them from the wayside, and we just kind of pick them up and we take them on our journey with us. And the truth is, I reckon that at least half of the people that exist in your life probably have no place in it. And, you know, it's harsh, and you know, I'm not apologizing for being, you know, straight to the point, but I realized that when I did this exercise, there was way too many people in my life that added no value. I added no value to them. I'd picked them up along the way. I had no idea what they were doing there. They were just there. Many drained my energy and gave very little energy. So I want you to write a list right now on your piece of paper of all of the people that are absolutely present and are part of your life fully and completely on the eve of that date. Now, if there are husbands, partners, wives, girlfriends, boyfriends, family members that are not on the list, that's fine too. Because when I did my exercise, Martin, who was Ruby's dad, you know, we've been together for something like ever, he wasn't on my list. He was not on the list on the eve of my 40th birthday. And I cried not writing his name down, because he was my life partner. So you've got to be honest with yourself. Who is not on the list? Don't write their name down. So who is on your list, the people list, the relationship list on the eve of your date? Write their name down. And as you're writing their names down, I want you to also think about the type of relationship you have with them. How much time are you spending with them? What are you doing with them? You know, how much, you know, what sort of activities, what sort of things are you doing? How much time are you spending with them? Who are they? If you want to do a list of those that have not made the list, then fine, write that list too. You know, we all know it. You know, you are, you know, the average of the 5 people you spend your time with. You know, really make it count. Make it count. There's just no room for people that have no place in your life. There's no time. There's no time. And what I would say as well is that, you know, who are those people that when they message you or phone you and say, do you fancy coming for coffee or do you fancy coming for dinner, you know, you go out of duty more than anything at all. You know, how many of those relationships that you have, you have them out of duty. You know, and I think sometimes we need a little bit of a reality check over who is actually important. And to share a very personal story with you, last Monday, and this, if anything puts anything into perspective, it is this. But last Monday, both of my within 2 hours apart, up in Nottingham, where I'm from. One of them had a serious stroke, and the other had a fall and had a blood clot. Now, the top layer of my family was wiped out in one morning, and it's been incredibly traumatic, from shock and sadness and everything. But I tell you, the one thing that I've took away from it, how important the right people are, and there's funerals being arranged, and there's family members, and half of them I don't have anything to do with. And for my mum's funeral, there's going to be like 7 of us, and it's the 7 most important people in my grandma's life, and it's such a sobering, you know, event. But so just make sure that, you know, even if you need to kind of put a bit of a, you know, a negative slant on it and think, you know, who would you have at your funeral? You know, who are those most important people? Because you need to spend your time with them today. And so often I hear people say, you know, I really should go and see mum more, or I really should, you know, see my best friend from school, or I really should. You know, even when I came over to Australia, I mean, Sarah, you can see Sarah there. You know, Sarah, I spent very little time with Sarah when she was in the UK, but I really wanted to see her when I came over. She was that important. In no time that I had, you know, I wanted to see her because she's really important to me. So I think, you know, we've just got to make sure that we make time for the people that matter. So who's on your list on the eve of that day and who isn't? And to take very, very careful steps. You know, and I came back from my trip with my little bit of paper, and it took me a little while, I'm not going to lie. I cut loads of people off very easily, but the one person that it took a great deal of time to separate from was Martin. But nobody had affairs, there was no heartbreak and no, you know, adultery. It was just, Martin, I did my list and you weren't on my list. And he's happy, he's got a new girlfriend with a new family. You know, these things work out well when you have a very honest conversation with yourself and other people. So the relationships piece is huge. So choose wisely and choose very carefully. And on that eve of that day, you know, I expect to see all those people that were on that list, and I hope to see fruitful, enjoyable relationships with every single one of them, and the rest have just fallen by the wayside because they're not important. They're not important. So get your list. So relationships is a big one. Next one is your free time. How much free time are you having? How much space is there? You know, how much space do you want on the eve of that date? You know, are you trying to cram in too much? Are you not taking enough time with family, with friends, with you? It's quite common that, you know, particularly when I'm talking to planners and advisors, you know, they seem to be reluctant to take any free time that's just about them. You know, so if you just have a day to yourself, you know, particularly you've got children and they're at school, you know, don't if you've got run your own firm, you want to have a day's holiday, take it and just spend it doing nothing just for yourself. So on the eve of that day, how much free time are you having? When are you taking holidays? How many days do you work? What hours do you work? Who are you spending your free time with? What are you doing? Where are you? You know, travel is a big one. You know, I wish I could work a 4-day week and have a long weekend. Well, work a 4-day week and have a long weekend. Yeah, but you know, the clients expect me to be there, and you know, you can design your life. This is what it's all about. It's you are in the driving seat. So how much free time do you want, and how much free time are you having on the eve of that date? Now is the time to write it down. You know, there might need to be changes made in your life to give you that much free time, but ultimately, you know, life is short, really short. You know, and so what are you doing? You know, how much free time are you having? One of my you know, bearing in mind that Ruby was nearly 3, so at the time Ruby was not at school, but I pledged then never ever ever to work a school holiday. It was not my plan. You know, I never wanted to have childcare issues. I never wanted to, you know, be shipping Ruby off to holiday clubs. You know, I don't work a school holiday. You'll never see me. I mean, coming to Australia was actually 1 week of the school holiday. And the only reason I did it was because Ruby was already going to be on holiday with my mum and my dad for the week. So she's really important to me. So my free time is split between, you know, the people that are important to me, but most importantly, I get a slice. You know, 2 weeks ago, I sat on the sofa and I watched Marvel movies back to back, and I had an amazing day. Ruby was at school and Mark was at work, and that's fine because I loved it and I had a great day, and I felt like I'd been like shot out of a rocket at the end of it. You know, finishing a day on Doctor Strange is good for anybody. You know, I loved it, but that was my day, and I deserve a day like that. So, but this was all in the plan. When I mapped the future version of me out on that night, I knew I was never going to work a school holiday, and I never, ever, ever, I only ever worked 3 days a week, and that was designed. And at the time, I was working 5 days a week, and I probably had the normal 2 weeks holiday, maybe 4 if I was lucky, and a bit of travel. So I designed it and I've achieved it. And that's what you do when you set your mind to it. So, you know, free time is massively important. And who are you spending your free time with? Which links into the relationship point that I shared earlier. So who and what are you doing? How much free time are you having on the eve of that day? You need to get it written down. This is my favorite one, if I'm honest, because this is your environment. So on the eve of that date, I want you to write down and describe where you are. Where do you live? Where do you work? What does your house look like? Where is it? Do you need to do renovations to it to make it a place that is your sanctuary? You know, my home is my sanctuary. You know, so what do you need to do? Maybe you've got a second home. Maybe you travel to a second place, or you spend time somewhere else. But describe your environment. Maybe it's calmer. Maybe it's, you know, more decorated. And I remember doing this presentation in Canada a few years ago. And one of the things I said to the audience was, you know, if you don't like where you live, move, because you're not a tree. Like, you're not stuck in the ground, you know, with your branches going, well, I can't move. Actually, you can move. So I did this presentation, and this very scary looking Canadian was staring, well, I thought he was Canadian, staring straight at me through the whole presentation. And then when I'd finished, he come marching up the middle of this room to me. Like, I thought he was going to like knock me over. And he said, he went, oh my God. He said, I've just realised I live in the wrong country. I was like, right, okay. He said, I need to move back to Vegas. And he was from Vegas, and he's in sleepy, you know, Canada. And he was like, he looked like Elvis, but like 20 times bigger. So scary, this looking guy is walking towards me. But he basically said, I'm going to phone my wife. And he spun around on the spot. He walked straight out of the room. And as I was kind of like knocking around in the afternoon, he came in and he went like this. So basically, he then messaged me like about a year later, and he'd moved back to Vegas because he realised when I'd done my presentation that he lived in the wrong country. You know, he was in the wrong place. His environment didn't make him happy. He was battling against himself. So, you know, on the eve of your date, in your future, for your future version of you, where do you live? What does your house look like? You know, what are you surrounded with? You know, maybe you need to make more of your garden or, you know, outdoor space. I mean, and for the record, you know, everybody that knows me well, I was born in the wrong country. You know, I love England. I love England. Like, I love the fact that it's chucking it down with rain and it's going to be grey all day. And this is where my family are and my friends are. But I was born in the wrong country. I should have been born in a country with you know, warmer. I am a girl fit for warmer climate. So I don't want to know that it's 38 degrees in Australia. Thank you very much, Jenny. You can keep that comment to yourself, as it's freezing here. But, you know, so on my master plan, because I redo my future you on an ongoing basis, I knew I was never going to leave the country in the next, you know, what was at the time the next 6 years, but you know, it's always on my future version of me that I will live in another country, and it'll be a hot one. So you know, so this is me designing my future version of me. So you know, where are you on the eve of that date, and write it down. And it's, you know, don't worry about anybody else, just focus on you for now. Where are you going to be? What country? Your house, your home? Where are you going to be on the eve of that date? Really important that you know, your environment is such an influencer to who you are and how you feel. It's got to be right. It's worth an honest conversation with yourself. The next one is money, is financial. So I want you to write down and think very carefully about how much money you've got. You know, this is a money conversation. How much money have you got? What bonus have you just been paid? You know, what have you been able to buy? What have you been able to pay off? So many of the clients that when I do this exercise with them on a one-to-one, tell me they want their mortgage paid off. Loads of them, you know, probably 99% say I want my mortgage paid off. So, you know, on the eve of that date, what are you earning? How much money have you got in the bank? What are you spending it on? You know, what you might have gifted some money away. You know, the money conversation. And people are still, even planners find it difficult to talk about their own financial, you know, affairs. And just as a sideline, if you are a financial planner, I would ask you, have you got a financial plan that allows you to achieve, or will you have a financial plan that will help you achieve your goals, your personal financial goals based on this future version of you? And I would recommend that you don't try and do that financial plan yourself, that you actually get somebody else to do it for you properly. So 2 things, so that you can have the experience of being a client of a financial planner. So choose well, choose one that fits with you, that understands you, and that can do the job properly on you. Because you'll never ever understand what it's like to be a client unless you have been one. Never in a million years. So, you know, when you sit down and you are in tears because your planner has asked you live questions, and, you know, has got into deep and meaningfuls with you about what's important about money to you, you know, what do you want to earn? You know, you never do that yourself, ever. You'll never experience the same thing. So get somebody to do your financial plan, so that whatever you write down on that bit of paper, you are going to achieve, you know, and you have a master plan. So finances are important. They are not any more important than any other area we've gone through. They are 1/10 of who you are as a person, because there's 10 areas of the future you, but it is important, of course, because it lets them, you know, it makes the money go around ultimately. So on the eve of that day, how much money do you have in the bank? What are you earning? What bonus have you just been paid? What have you just treated yourself to? You know, what are you doing with your money? What are you really doing with your money? And it's very true that with money, you either buy time or you buy things. There's nothing else you can spend money on. So if you have a cleaner, you're buying time. If you hire more staff in your business, you're buying time. You know, I don't take a huge salary from my business because I've got way more staff than I need. But what it means is that I spend my money, the earnings of the business, particularly in this example, on people, so that I can not work a school holiday and that I can only work 3 days a week. And that's worth every single penny in my book. I don't buy designer watches or nice handbags because they're not important to me. But it took me to design the future version of me to establish what was massively important to me, and it was time. And that's what I buy with the money that I personally earn. I have a cleaner, I have someone that looks after the garden. You know, I have no intention of washing my car, because not that I'm lazy, but when I spend £20 getting someone to wash my car, I'm playing Lego with Ruby. And that's how it works. So that's why money, and that's what money means to me. But what does it mean to you? What does that financial piece mean to you in your life, and particularly on the eve of that day? It's so important. This one again is equally as important, particularly in a sector where we are, you know, told constantly to upskill, learn more. You know, I'm talking about these are your skills and capabilities on the eve of that date. And I'm absolutely, please do not write down a qualification or a designation. Think of something else. You know, like think about learning to knit or bake or get your golf handicap down or learning to play tennis or surf or anything else on that list other than your academic financial services qualifications, because you are not defined by how smart you are in this sector. You know, think about other things. So, you know, what can you do on the eve of that date that you currently cannot do today? Write it down. I had one financial advisor. He said to me, he said, I want to learn how to bake. And I was like, why? He said, because I love cake. so he, to be fair, he looked like he loved cake, but that was another story. But, you know, he loved cake. He said, and I want to bake. He said, and my wife thinks I can't bake. So, you know, I had one advisor that say to me he wants to learn how to, you know, play the drums again, because he played the drums in college and had a car accident and he hurt his wrist. So look, there's so much other stuff that we can be doing to pack into our lives to make it fun when we learn stuff. And whatever it is, you know, but please don't write down a financial services qualification, because I will come and hunt you down and I'll delete it. I'll scribble it out. So what else? What else do you know? Have you learned? Can you do on the eve of that date that you currently cannot do today? Upskill. Let's learn new capabilities, new skills, and let's keep learning, but not obsessively about our sector. Let's take it broader. Let's take it to the whole person. Write it down. What do you know? Now, the last two I've combined, and the reason I've combined them is because it's very difficult when you're doing a webinar to just numbers on a screen, or even when you're doing it in an audience. It's very difficult to know how these two all land. So the first one is spiritually. So spiritually, on the eve of that date, the eve of your date, what does that mean to you? You know, what do you want a connection with? Maybe it's a higher force, maybe it's, you know, doing more meditation, maybe it's a better relationship with yourself, you know, being more connected with who you are, more centered, more grounded, you know, just the whole slowing the world down. A little while ago, a friend said to me, how are you? And I said, do you know what? I said, the only way I can actually answer that is to tell you that I feel like I'm living in a heightened sense of awareness. That's my response. And she was like, right. I don't think she was quite expecting the response to that question. But what I meant was, I'm very aware of what's going on around me. The world has slowed down. I'm very aware of my feelings. I'm connected fully with myself. So on the eve of your date, who or what do you want to be connected with spiritually? Everybody has a different definition of what that means to them. It's a very personal thing. But on the eve of your date, what does that mean to you? So important. It's so important. Mine, when I did my exercise, mine was I wanted a much better relationship with myself, because what I realized was that I spent very little time with myself. There was always lots of things going on, or lots of people going on. There was always people around me. So when I have my, you know, my sofa day, I love it, because it's just about me. I can make a drink when I want. I can watch whatever I want. It's just about me. And you know, that was on my master plan, and it's absolutely fine. So spiritually is a big one. And the last one is charity. So, you know, on the eve of that date, what does charity mean to you? What are you doing? Maybe you're doing more. Maybe you're doing less. You know, who are you sharing your time with, your resources with? You know, what are you doing to give back? You know, who are you giving back with? One of the things that I've never really been a big one on charity, because I always have this huge fear that any money I donate does not go into the place it should be going. Call me a cynic, but that's where I'm at. But when I came back from, and actually it was the AFA conference that inspired me, I did some research, and I'm now sponsoring as a business and personally a local mental health charity in Hitchin, which is where I live, and it focuses on young adults and children in Hitchin schools. So the school that my daughter goes to, a sad, terrible story was that one of the mothers, she committed suicide, she hung herself. Terrible, terrible story. And the little boy was absolutely devastated, and this charity just swooped in, no fees, just went in and just took care of him. So my presentations that I do, I donate money now. So at the time when I did this exercise first, I didn't have anything on my list. I didn't have anything on my future version. But as I've done it, these things have become more important to me. So, you know, on my version 20 of my future you, you know, charity is a big thing for me. But, you know, on your list, you know, on your future designed you know, what does charity mean to you on the eve of that date? What are you doing? I once had a lady who, she worked in a financial planning firm. She wasn't a planner. And I said to her, you know, what does charity mean for you? And she was Irish, and she lived in England, and nobody ever really knew what she did in her holidays. She was a very private person, but I managed to talk through with her, you know, what charity meant to her. And she said that, you know, when she retires, her were being spent rebuilding her community back in Ireland that she'd left as a child, because it had just gone to rack and ruin over the years, and it was deteriorating. The community was falling apart. So all of her spare money and all of her time when she went on holiday was going back to Ireland. Now, you know, she was so happy. I mean, this woman was literally bouncing off the walls, but charity was her thing. So whatever it is and whatever it means to you, you know, it's personal, it is private, and, you know, it's a big deal. So you can design the future version of you in the area of charity. Now I'm going to ask you 2 questions, because that's it. That's the 10. You know, what I would now ask you is a very, very poignant question, which is, well, it's 2 questions in 2 parts. It is, so if we've just sat through, you know, 50 minutes designing the future version of yourself, what I want to know is, you know, what people and things are stopping you from becoming the best possible future version of yourself. Write it down. Write down what is stopping you. Who and what is stopping you from becoming the best possible future version of yourself? And then I want you to answer, what are you going to do about it? What's your next steps? What's the first conversation you have, and who is it with? What's the first change you make? You know, when are you going to make it, and what is it? We've got to make sure that we absolutely, without question, this is not about being selfish. This is not about being self-centered. This is essential, because if we are well, if we are happy, everybody around us will be fueled up, will be powered up, will be able to share our love and our time and our energy with people that probably at times need it more than we do. And we can do that because we're full of passion, we're full of enthusiasm, and we're full of happiness, and we're full of love. And we can do that because we've spent the time to take care of the most important person, which is ourselves. And this exercise is not a one-time only job. This is, you can do this as often as you like. You know, I probably do this every 6 to 8 weeks, sometimes longer. Sometimes I can go, you know, a year without doing it. But one of the most important things is that I make sure that this exercise is repeated. I also did it with Mark. When I first started dating Mark, I wanted to make sure that his future you was aligned with my future you, because if we weren't, then we were going to go off track at some point, and we regroup, we revisit it, you know, and it's important to do that. So as I draw the presentation, this conversation to a close, I'm very happy to stick around for any questions if anyone has, but I want to end on this slide, and I will share this slide because it's probably one of the most poignant quotes that I think I've ever picked up on social media, which is, you are not required to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. That's not your job. You know, your job is to make sure that you keep yourself warm, that you do what you need to do for yourself. And in truth, if you do that, everybody else will be fine. But you must promise me and everyone that's on this call, and yourself more importantly, that you will take care of yourself before taking care of anybody else. So I'm done. I've spoken enough. I'm very happy to answer any questions or take any comments. I'm going to unshare my screen.
I can only say that I've taken so many notes. It's been the quietest I've been for an hour in a very long time.
Has anybody ever seen Jenny this quiet? I don't think I have, no.
I think even Natalie and Sarah were feverishly taking notes. So thank you so much, Michelle. That was
Pleasure.
amazing.
Pleasure.
I think everybody has been copiously taking notes. So if you've got any questions for Michelle, please drop them into the Q&A, into the chat.
Please do.
Please, you know, we will check them. But, you know, if you're like me, you've probably got lots of notes to reflect back on. But I just thought I'd ask you a question. There's just 1,000 golden nuggets in here, so expect lots of text messages.
That's all right.
But the game changer date, I mean, I guess we all create goals lists and, you know, our sort of wish list at the start of the year and things, but the game changer date, I get that that's quite pivotal. Is it a game changer if you don't have a game?
Well, I think everyone needs a destination. It's like putting sat nav. It's like when you get in your car, right? I think one of the things I would say is I've never been ever, both personally or professionally, one for setting, you know, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year goals. I've never done it, and I have no intention of starting. So for me, dates, I have to feel totally attached to the date. So the reason my 40th birthday date was key was because I knew exactly how I wanted to look on the eve of my 40th birthday. And one of my little measures was, I want to be able to go to the gym and be surrounded with people who look way younger than me, and I look way better. That was it. It was quite simple and straightforward. But the date meant something to me. So I think the date is key, but it could be 10 years' time. It could be on the eve of your 50th birthday. It could be when your children have grown up and left to go to university, or, you know, it could be, you know, in 9 months' time when you find out, you know, you're a grandmother or a grandfather or whatever. It doesn't matter. But I think you need to have a date. And it need not be a superficial date. It needs to be a real date that means huge amounts to you as a person. It's a personal date.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think when it's personal, there's more desire to actually want to achieve it, isn't there?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So Brian has just asked if we will make the recording of Michelle's session available, and I'm getting a nod from the AFA ladies that will be happening, Brian. So yes, we will be sharing the recording from the session today. And obviously, Michelle has said that she's happy for us to share the slides, so we will definitely.
Absolutely.
Did you have any questions yourselves, ladies, or whether there was anything for you? I actually thought the financial one was really interesting. As a lady who's not a financial planner but works very prominently with financial planners and also has a daughter that is a financial planner, it's really strange to sort of sit down and have the financial conversation. Because, you know, the dynamic shifts away from me being in control of the conversation to someone else.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, you know, we've all got to have the money conversation. You know, I mean, when we're in our sector, because it's the conversation that we all, in the main, Jenny. I know you're not, as I'm not a planner, but when you have it with planners, they seem to get lost in the fact that, I've got life insurance. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm cool. If anything happens to me, I've got critical illness. No, I'm not talking about that either. Like what? Let's talk about something else. Like, you know, how much money you have in the bank, what you're doing with it. You know, all the stuff that I've just talked about. So, you know, we're in a sector that's obsessed with the money. Interesting, but it's not about the money. I keep getting told it's not about the money. You know, it's not about the money, but it clearly is about the money, because that's all we talk about every day in lives and what money means to their lives. So I think, you know, we have to have that money conversation, but it's a personal conversation. You know, not about how much we're worth when we die or whatever, but, you know, what does money mean to us as people? Money, but my biggest challenge, and, you know, anyone that knows me well, I'm not motivated by money at all. I wish I was, but I'm not. Like, you know, when we close a really great project, the team are like, "Oh, that's amazing. That means we can do that." And I'm just like, does that mean I can have, you know, more time off with Ruby? Like, or whatever. You know, some people are just not motivated by money, and I think that's important to recognise in yourself if you are. And that's okay, but it's also okay not to be. I'm terribly not motivated by money at all.
Yeah. So probably just one final question from me, and I'm not sure if the other ladies have one. So you've taken us through the obvious different channels or that are important for us to reflect on. I'm guessing here that it's important that we do each of those steps. I mean, you tend to go, oh, I'll just jump the one about the environment.
No.
I'll just jump the one about, you know, spiritually, how I feel about things. So is it important to do all of the steps?
Yeah, I mean, and you know, and I'm really recalling something that any MDRT member or anybody that's attended or involved in MDRT, you know, is obviously the global body for financial planners and advisors, and they talk about something called the whole person concept. Like, it's all about balance, right? So when I've seen and I have a girlfriend who she throws everything she has into her children and her husband, right? Everything. And there is literally nothing left for friendships, herself. She doesn't even believe that she deserves clothes that are not in the sale. She will only go shopping when it's the sales. And we've all got these people in our lives. And I'll say to her, you're so out of balance. So out of balance. She's got a bad back. She doesn't have time to go to the hairdressers, but it's because she throws herself into two aspects. Well, one, if you think about the relationship piece. So in order to be happy and to focus on your well-being, you've got to broaden it out a bit. You've got to not be obsessed about, I mean, yes, 100% there are times in our lives when we have to maybe focus more on the children, you know. I mean, I made an active decision not to have any more children, excuse me, because I knew that if I had another child, the time that, and as much as I wanted to do that, I knew that time, that slice of time could only come from one place, and that would be from my slice. And I didn't want to do that. And I knew, I felt that it would jeopardize my relationship with Ruby, because that was my one-to-one time with Ruby was important. So I make choices because I focus on the whole person. You know, if I was all about, you know, my family, I would definitely be depleting my own resources, because I'm not refueling from anywhere else. You can't drink from an empty cup. We all know the saying. We can't. So the balance, Jenny, is so important, that we've got that broadness to the whole person, who we are as people. And that's why the money, the charity, the spiritual, you can't skip anything, because you're just doing yourself an injustice if you do. It's a shame to do that.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think you have well and truly filled our cups, and given that it's officially after 5 o'clock here, and I'm sure that many of the people on this call and in this office have still got a good few hours of work to do. we should release them, but we should let you go and have breakfast.
Thank you. I'm going to have my coffee.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
You're welcome.
It was a joy to
welcome.
at the AFA conference, and it
Our pleasure.
part of the
Thank
webinar today.
My pleasure.
If I'm sure you'll be getting an email out very shortly with all the details. And once again, thank you so much, Michelle, and have a really fabulous day in London.
I will. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
See you later. You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.